Okay, so here we are. First day of class online. Unit 10, Moses and Exodus. If you remember, we ended the story right before the third quarter and then the extended break we had here. We ended the story with the Joseph story, right? Of how the Israelites ended up in Egypt because of the famine. They had to go to Egypt to get the food from Pharaoh. Pharaoh's second in command is Joseph, who's originally an Israelite, and then the Israelites settle in Egypt, right? So that's kind of where we ended, and we're going to pick up the story in Egypt, but as you'll see, things are a little different. Okay, the first thing that's quite different is that there's a new Pharaoh in charge, and this new Pharaoh does not like the Israelites. Not a big fan at all. And what he does is he says, hey, I want to start building some stuff, and I've got a lot of these Israelites that are living in my land. They're not Egyptian, right? I don't have any remembrance of who Joseph is. I have no loyalty to the Israelites. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn them into a workforce. And so he enslaves the Israelites and uses them as cheap/free labor to start building his big projects. And you've probably seen, we got here on the screen right here, the animated version of the Moses story, right? I think it's called The Prince of Egypt, right? And we'll get into why it's called The Prince of Egypt in just a second. But the first thing to note, right, is that the Israelites, they're enslaved. New Pharaoh does not like the Israelites. Okay, here we go. Moses, an Israelite, is born and ends up becoming a prince of Egypt, kind of like Joseph. So how does this happen, right? And you probably know the story, and I don't have the picture here, but you probably know the story that Moses' mother puts him in a reed basket, and he kind of sails down the river, and eventually he's picked up by a royal family, right, the family of Pharaoh. And he's raised in Pharaoh's household and treated as royalty, right? And so Moses grows up kind of pretty much like Egyptian royalty and not amongst the Israelites. And so this is another common theme that you're going to see throughout the Bible, where you've got this guy that maybe is disconnected from the suffering of his own people, right? Or if you think back to some of the other stories, the Jacob stories, the Isaac stories, where you've got people that are chosen, but you don't know why they're chosen, right? Isaac is not the firstborn. His half-brother Ishmael is. Jacob, not the firstborn. Esau is. And yet Isaac is chosen, Jacob is chosen. Moses, not amongst the suffering Israelites. In fact, he's living the good life. Why does God choose him? And then hopefully by the end of the Moses story, that'll become clear. But the big thing is this. Moses grows up in Pharaoh's court, treated like royalty, but then one day, here's what happens. Kind of like in the scene that we're seeing right here, Moses encounters an Egyptian whipping an Israelite. And at this point, Moses has kind of grown up, and he knows that he's got Israelite heritage, right? And so something moves in him that he gets very upset at the way this Egyptian taskmaster is treating this other Israelite. And so he ends up killing the Egyptian, right? So you see here, he flees from Midian, the local town nearby, after killing an Egyptian. So it's a pretty big deal, right? Guy in Pharaoh's own court kills an Egyptian. Why? Well, word gets out, right? And so Moses flees, and he's scared for his life, right, to be arrested for murder. But he's also scared in the sense that identity of being a royal Egyptian is now lost, right? So what I want you to do right now, because we're going to take a quick break, because this might be a lot for the first session here. What I want you to do right now is turn to your Bible, and I just want you to read the first 2 chapters of the Exodus story. Now that you've kind of got some background information here, right? And just take a look at the first 2 chapters of Exodus and just see what's going on in that story from your own perspective. Write down maybe 3 facts on a sheet of paper. I'm obviously not going to collect it, but write that down, and then check out the course notes below this video. And then once you've read those 2 chapters, you've looked at the course notes, head on over to the second video for today's lesson, and I'll see y'all in the next one.